says we're live. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be in the world. If we are live, why don't you do me a favour? Well, you won't be here anyway because we're 15 minutes early. And pop a comment in the comments. That would be good. Gentlemen. Well, not a lot has happened this week. I see, before we get on to did you like my spammy thumbnail I put up for this one?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
it looked very good.
And I after I posted, I thought what I should have done was I should have put the goggles on upside down, because then plenty of people would have complained about that, and that would have done very well. But yeah, those goggles. We'll talk about those goggles in a minute, a bit closer to when anybody else might join us, if they do, if there's any comments. But before that, I see that the World Radio Council is not only discussing getting rid of 2 meters and making an aeronautical band, they're also discussing stuff around 1280 because it affects GPS of various amateur things, and of course some of the FPV stuff that's up there. That's all about 1.2, isn't it, Bruce?
Yeah, it's around 1.2. There's 3 or 4 channels there people can choose, but mostly there's only 2 that fall into the amateur radio part of the spectrum. So was it I can't remember the numbers, but yeah, there's only a very, very small amount of bandwidth there. Of course, you have to be a ham radio operator to use it, so I suspect that very few people use it legally.
Legally, yeah, that's the term. Legally,
illegally, everyone's on there.
Plenty of people use it. Yeah,
I'd love to see the amount of licenses that are issued now. Do they publish that? It's not something I've looked at for years. How many licenses are still published each year? Do we know?
I'm sure they do, but it's not something I would look at. I'm sure they do. But it's interesting that they're also talking about getting rid of that allocation as well. So there's a scramble for bandwidth, isn't there? Or up and down the bands for various things. And be interesting to see what that goes to. But not goes to, but they're talking about particularly protecting, and they mention Galileo by name as being the one most at threat. And they're obviously very nervous people in Galileo land.
For good reason, some would say. Yeah.
I mean, how long did it end? Was it 2 weeks? Did they end up away for?
Yeah, and I think it's a weird thing, because if you actually look at the radio spectrum was split up 50 years ago. Really, it hasn't really changed a lot in the last 50 years. Little chunks of it have moved around, but we're trying to deal with a legacy system of allocation and what's been split up, and we're heading to a point where there needs to be a fundamental look at how much the military have got and how much we're going to have to make available for everyone else, because the reality is there isn't enough there for everyone as we move into the next 10-15 years.
Yeah, well, 5G sort of soaked up a lot of the excess space, hasn't it? It's just come little bits everywhere, so anything that was available has been sucked into the 5G vacuum.
Yeah,
I'm not quite understanding. Has 5G got lots of little chunks of allocation everywhere then?
Yeah, it's spread quite a bit across the spectrum. There's stuff down there at the low end of the, which traditionally was the cell phone area, but they go right up to 3 gigs and so forth. So they've tried to sort of grab little bits that they can, because obviously for that sort of bandwidth, you need as much spectrum allocation as you can get.
You know, I've got a friend who actually works in the National Grid Wireless in the networks, and he said, you know, how the networks stay up is almost as much as a miracle of how they actually work, because these whole things were never designed for the amount of data we're pulling through them at the moment. And, you know, you've only got to go to somewhere with 100 people, and then suddenly the system just falls over. So there needs to be a fundamental relook at everything, really.
Look at that! I can cover Bruce up with the comments. That's fantastic. Evening, boo boo.
Oh, that is brilliant. That is brilliant.
That's. Hang on, let's try a different layout while we're doing that. See,
right? Is anyone got a link to the YouTube chat? Because I can't get it to work. Now we are definitely on. That I can tell you, because my phone is showing it. So we're definitely on.
Well, that's good.
So hi everyone.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Hide that. Right, let's get rid of that. There we are. So far, with only 3 of us, this new system is actually working. I suspect it won't. There's 4 or 5 of us. But there we go. And I see plenty of people complaining like Billio to YouTube about getting rid of the previous service. But there we are.
So where is the chat? Why can I not find the chat?
It's top
chat. And Victor's there.
Yep. look at. It's interesting because I'm sure that, have you seen the changes they're making to YouTube now, where some people are getting just 4 video thumbnails per page because they've made them really big, because people use, it's like a mobile type layout, but they put it on the desktop. It's terrible.
What, like this? Ah!
Oh,
Yeah.
live stream's gone offline.
Uh-oh.
No, it's still on my
Right,
phone.
Still going. Still going.
Still going. Oh well, that's very good. Well, we've got people here, so people here.
Hello,
let's get-
everyone.
Yeah, so there's several things that had gone away from the YouTube thing, like the number of viewers that had gone away. Oh, I don't like me being big. I don't want me to be big. Oh no, don't like that. Mad Ass. Oh, Mad Ass, he's in the chat. I've heard of that bloke.
Hello.
Yeah, so quite a few things went away as I guess the previous YouTube thing was dying. They just removed various factors.
I don't really understand what's going on with YouTube at the moment, in the sense of, the 3 of us use it for various things, and it's almost like we're fighting them at every opportunity at the moment. Everything they're doing is a roadblock in front of what you're trying to do, and it's bizarre. It's just utterly bizarre.
It's because now they're focused on advertisers and business. They're turning it into the new television. It's like I got 3 non-skippable mid-roll ads in a row yesterday for the first time watching a video. It was a 7-minute video, and I got this block of 3 non-skippable ads in the middle, and I almost gave up watching the video. It's that bad that they've ramped up. And also, when you do searches now, there's ads at the top of the search results. They've really ramped up the advertising. And so the creators, because they've got so many of them, they don't count for anything. They don't care what we think. They care what advertisers think. And I see it beginning a bit of a spiral. Every empire has its peak, and then we have the Roman Empire and the British Empire. We've had the YouTube empire, and I think it's about to take a bit of a spiral because there are other options in the wings, and I'm behind one of them.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean other options in the wings? And Osby Jones got 1,000 count and 4,000 hours, but not reviewed in a quarter of a year to get that. Well, the live streaming gone away, or what was the review for? I can't remember. That was for monetization, wasn't it?
Yeah, to become a YouTube partner, you've got to have certain criteria, and then you apply, and then some people have been waiting for many months. It's ridiculous, because what they're doing now, of course, is that they've got 2 sets of rules. The CEO has admitted there are 2 sets of rules. One set of rules for the big corporate users, like the news channels and the media and the music video companies, and another set for all the mere private content creators. So that the people who've got the big corporate backing, they can do whatever they like on the channel. They can monetize videos about anything. Whereas the mere individual content creators, they are subject to these rules and terms and conditions that don't apply to the others. It's very sad. It's lost its roots. It used to be a place where people could come and express themselves, but now you can still express yourself, but unless your expression is parallel to what YouTube and Google think, you just get demonetized.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'd struggle if I was to lose the income. I'd really struggle.
It's weird, because we go from people who make a living on this to guys who just do it because they can, through guys who are building up their channels, and it just feels like everything they're doing is another brick they're trying to put in front of us, or a hurdle to jump over. And I remember the change, and I didn't really understand it when it happened, and luckily it didn't affect me. I was past that point. But I do wake up some days and think, what are they going to take off me today, or what is going to go tomorrow? And it's, for the guys who are in this full time, it's got to be quite scary that your source of income, or a large source of your income, can just go overnight.
They're beginning to fail quick, though, aren't they? And not even what are they called? Flight Test. I was showing the what's that impossible thing? There's loads of lads, dude imperfect or something like that. So I was teaching today, and we'd done all our work, half term, end of the week. So I let them have a muck about day, and they all started watching Dude Imperfect. And I said, no. In my class, you're watching Flight Test or Bruce. That's what you're watching in my class. I'm banning those guys. And they said, who's this old dude? That's not you, sir. But anyway, so they're watching Flight Test, and there they are doing a little piece for DJI in the middle of send your flying experiences. So even Flight Test is really struggling, I think, to make a living, which is quite extraordinary. Well, they must be. Their expenses must have gone through the roof. I'm speculating, obviously. But I'm just amazed. I'm amazed that they're doing weird ads in the middle of it.
I think we're going to probably see a complete shift away from advertising revenue now. Look, if you look at all the big players, I watched JB last night, Joshua Bardwell, one of his live streams, and the big thing is now, donations, affiliate links to a point, but support us through other methods outside of YouTube, because I think people are getting concerned that one company has the ability to pull instantly, and they've been very good to me, and I've had no issues at all. But when you have all your eggs in one basket, when you're doing this for a living, that has to be very, very scary.
Yeah, it is. That's one of the things that I learned very early on. You've got to distribute your revenue streams, but I don't go for the affiliate stuff. I've got Patreon, which supports me very well. That's great.
Yeah.
But I notice now, like they have these, when you're doing a stream, people can make these donations through YouTube. There's a
yes.
They take 30% of that money, which is really money for chance.
Do they?
Yeah, 30%. So a lot of people doing live streams now are using alternative services that take a tiny little commission, so they can go make the donation outside of YouTube, which is working really well for some of these people, and they just have to do it. It's YouTube is just so greedy, and I don't know what's going to happen, because live streaming is also a big issue. A lot of people are getting their live stream privileges revoked for no apparent reason, and someone might do a 2-hour live stream and put it up and it gets demonetized because there was 5 seconds of a radio playing in the background or something, and it's like, so. Yeah, it is difficult, and I think we're going to see some major changes. The thing that annoys me most is that even if you are someone like Joshua Bardwell or Flight Test, you've got to start bringing commercial pressures into your content, and that then, whether it does or not, it gives the impression that perhaps your content isn't as objective as it could be, because you've got to make a buck to stay alive.
Yeah, I think it's a complex subject, isn't it? And funny enough, we talked about this quite a lot off here a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's a no-win for everyone. And funny you mentioned about the top chart. JB had it on, and I actually donated a bit to him just because I felt, he, again, like yourself, Bruce, he's one of those people I've always thought, they give you great info, but I didn't realize they take 30% of it. That I didn't realize they're cutting that much out of it. It is complex with reviews. If someone's given it to try, where's my camera? given it to try, or bought it, where is your objectivity the most? And I don't think there's a simple answer either. If you look at the iPhone Do videos, to a point, he does an outstanding job on what he does, but basically it's paid advertising. If you look at it overall, they're sent a product to look at, and they do a fantastic job of it. But at the end of the day, almost that's an ad for the company. It's not so much a review, it's an ad. And I think, for me, never listen to one person. Just watch 5 reviews. Watch 5 or 6 or 7 of them, and watch everything and make your decision based on that. Never listen to one unless it's Bruce. If it's Bruce, always listen to Bruce. But if it's everyone else, take an overall picture. Do your homework. I don't think it's very hard to find 100% impartial. Now, I think it's almost impossible.
So let's answer Victor's question. Does Patreon also take a cut?
Yeah, but it's a much smaller cut.
Yeah,
it's like, I think 5 to 10% or something. It is a lot less. There are several different tiers you can use on Patreon depending on how much you're committed to the platform, but it is a much, much smaller amount, and so it's a much better option.
And then Boo Boo says Steam Labs for donations. I don't know about that. I'll have to find out about that.
I think that's one of those additional services that people can use outside of YouTube. So YouTube shoots itself in the foot, because if they're going to make it too expensive, and when Ian didn't know about the commission side of things, and once they realize that, you're probably going to look at alternative options. So YouTube, as always, has just got so greedy that they are shooting themselves in the foot, basically.
And reminds me of how Flight Test has gone down in creativity. I don't think it's the past few years. I think you could say it's 6 months. They've got that new place, and it seems to...
I think what I found interesting, especially the last 2 weeks, and this actually rolls a bit into the DJ Goggles, because I spent a lot more time on the FPV groups than I have in the past. And how much sponsorship and how normal it is within the FPV groups compared to, say, the traditional multi-rotor side. You know, if you go on the multi-rotor forums, RC groups, places like that, anyone who got something for free was either called a shill or instantly, you know, it was, you got something for free as a shill. You know, you go on the FPV groups, people are sponsored by companies instantly. It's I've been sent this, look, let me show you. And it's almost the norm. I was shocked at how it's just accepted. Simple, whereas I think on the multi-rotor and fixed wing side, there's so much more negativity towards it, or so much more. What's the word I'm probably thinking of? I'm trying to think what the word would be. People, yeah. I think people are far more. Yeah, glockenspiel. People are far more cautious on that side of it, and it's interesting. Whereas in the FPV groups, there seems to be stuff flowing around everywhere. You know.
Going to move my chair. There we are. Oh, yeah, there we are. No, thank you. Yeah, I think this is the best one for the comments. I'm sorry about making you sick, dear viewer, as I go around.
He moves about. We're still online. So
we're still, that's good. We're about 2,000% longer running than last week, aren't we now?
I think what's funny is what the viewers don't know is last week we had an entire hour's worth of video. You just didn't see it. That's
I know, and it was really good, and it was mostly about those goggles. Now, 2/3 of the people on this chat have actually touched those goggles, and I'm not one of those thirds. So where are we at then, chaps? Where are we at? Because the fever pitch about the things. They're everywhere, aren't they?
They are. Go for it, Bruce. You've managed to get your hands on a set. Go for it.
Yeah. I've got to say, unfortunately, well, I don't know whether it matters, but I've got the goggles and the air unit because I fly mode 1, and of course all the units in New Zealand are mode 2. So it was no point in me getting a transmitter. But that does enable me to answer a few other questions that people have had about the viability of using just the FPV side of things.
Yep.
Because personally, I wouldn't want to spend $300 US on a transmitter that doesn't even have trims. So I don't see that being a viable thing for me. But so I've got the unit here. I'm going to be putting it on fixed wing and rotary wing. It might perhaps looking at the stuff that's come up to date. It looks like a pretty good unit for the type of flying some people like myself. I mean that epic vlog I did. That's the sort of flying I really enjoy. I'm not shooting gaps and going through things, but I do like to fly close proximity to things and get some nice flowing cinematic footage when I can. It's perfect for that because the latency isn't such a big deal. And but on that side, the downside to me is the quality of that camera is pretty bad. For a DJI product, I would expect it a much better camera. They've over sharpened the image, so it's got ringing on it. And this is even on the recorded HD footage from the air unit itself rather than just the goggles. So I was a little disappointed in that camera. But other than that, it looks like it reliably seems to get to about 1.5 miles. Most people I've seen doing range tests get to about 1.5 miles, and then it sort of starts turning to custard. So people have asked me, do a proper range test. How does it work with existing analog gear? And so far, I've seen that there can be some issues if you've got someone with the goggles too close to someone with an analog system, because like most digital transmissions, it's pretty spready, so it does bleed onto other channels quite a bit. And of course, if you're using the FPV, the DJI system, you're not going to be as much influenced because the transmitters that are going to affect you are further away. But remember, the DJI goggles actually transmit as well as receive. Yes. So that's why they splatter the guy. If you're sitting there in a drone racing setup, you're not going to be sitting right next door to the guy with the DJI goggles on. He has to sit several meters away down the end. So but I'm going to sort of try and quantify these things.
Yeah, I think that's something that people may not fully grasp with the OcuSync, which it's based on, for instance, compared to, say, analog FPV. It's a duplex system. It's constantly throwing data both ways. So, as you say, it's putting out 700 milliwatts, for instance, in FCC, just as much as the transmitter is banging out 700 milliwatts in FCC, whereas in analog, you're not used to having that situation. Your transmitter was doing all of the work, different band, different area, and out the way. So yeah, that's an impact. I haven't had a chance to do a lot of tests comparing it to analog. I built up 3 analog systems to put on a bench test and test next to it. Just time got away from me this week. I didn't have the chance to do it, and I think others are probably going to do a far better job than I would of that anyway. So I'm probably going to leave it to them now. It's interesting when you look across all the groups. It certainly had a huge amount of interest. That's for sure. And Yeah, okay. I think the limitations it's got appear to be what we would expect with digital. I think if we've got digital, the best we can have it. I think there will always be this brick wall we hit with digital. You'll never ever have a digital system that can replace analog fully. I just don't think we'll ever get to that scenario for the guys who want to be able to push to the maximum range and accept the total worst image. There is always going to be a point where digital falls off a cliff where analog would continue. But what they've done with the focus mode and the way it handles the digital signal is unlike anything I've seen anyone else do. And I think probably for 90% of FPV flyers, it would do everything they want it to do. And I think it's only that very 10% who are actually racing, who are actually slamming it through gates every day. They're probably the guys who will always go back to analog.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of the CE mode, because I know in New Zealand CE mode is the standard, and 25 milliwatts makes a huge difference. If you're only running 25 milliwatts, it really does knock down the range, increase the latency, cause all sorts of issues. Of course, most of the people that have been testing it in the USA under FCC mode, which is much more effective. So I'm going to do some side-by-sides with the 25 and the 700. And I gather, Ian, that someone has worked out how to change the modes.
There is. Some dodgy guys put a way out of there. Yeah, okay. There's a file out there which is available that allows you to change. There's two ways of doing it. Just to explain this, the way the system works is when you get it, it's locked to one channel on CE mode. DJI basically appear to have a requirement to ensure that, well, they do have a requirement to ensure that it is locked to the correct output power fuel region. It's one of the reasons in Europe, very few transmitters now simply let you flick a switch. Everything is software locked to stop you doing it, and that's why if you want to do it on your other transmitters, you have to reflash the firmware or something like that. DJI implement it via your IP address, so when you activate it, it looks at where your IP location is, and then it goes, oh, you're in a CE location, lock it to CE. But it isn't a permanent lock. It is done whenever it's connected to the Assistant app. So you can very simply change it from CE to FCC or any of the other regions by either A, masking your IP address into a different IP. However, we managed to find out a way of telling the transmitter to change it by simply placing a file on the SD card. And what that does is when you boot it up, it looks at the file and goes, oh, go for it, and it's ready to rock and roll, basically.
Gosh, and would anyone have put a video out about that?
A very dodgy person put a video out about it. So if you want to know, have a search for it. Yeah, this dodgy person, yeah. Bruce challenged me about it last week.
Put it in the comments.
There. Let me find it. Let me go find it. See, I don't. It's how bad I am.
Go and do anything else.
Yes.
And does VPN Assistant use will fix that shock horror? But it sounds like the file is better way to go.
File's the best way of doing it. The only way the file plays up is if you reconnect it to Assistant to update the firmware. It'll look, if you're not on a VPN, it'll look and lock it back to your correct region. However, just do the file thing again, and it'll be fine. Some people have said, do they expect DJI to lock it down? I'm not expecting that to happen, personally.
And M. Wilson's still waiting to see what Fat Shark comes out with. There's lots of talk of that.
There is a huge amount of talk around the new option, and I don't know if that was really a rush to steal some of the limelight, or are they close to a viable product? I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see, because I noticed on the DJI unit, when you look inside, they've got what looks like some custom silicon. They can afford to do that. They can get ASICs made to suit them. And it's all very much large single chip solutions on the RF deck and on the encoding deck in the air unit. So, and of course, these things use a hell of a lot of power. And I'm wondering, even the receiver uses a hell of a lot of power. How are they going to fit that to a Fat Shark module? It's such a small space. I don't know that there will be, if it is, it's going to be a giant wart on the side of your goggles, I think, to make it work.
The whispers are it's HDMI. The whispers I've heard is it's not module compatible. It is HDMI. How true that is, I don't know. And that custom silicon thing is an interesting comment, because I've seen a few people say, oh, no one thought it would be DJI to do the first proper digital FPV system. I worked it out. This is DJI's 8th revision of their digital FPV system. It starts long ago with the Inspire one. Before that, really, with the Lightbridge system. Now, OcuSync is a version of that many years down the line, and about the Phantom 4, they went down the road of creating their own silicon. And that is the path that's gotten to where they are today. And it's been commented before. I think it was FPV Blue said the original OcuSync unit, they couldn't make it for what DJI sold the whole package for. So, it's...
Yeah, because traditionally when I looked at, because I've been working on a standard definition digital system, you really have to use an FPGA.
Yeah.
If you're not getting custom silicon created. And FPGAs are incredibly expensive, and they use a hell of a lot of power. So that's what makes it very difficult for small companies to get into this market, because you don't have the coin to get your own ASICs cast. So you've got to use off-the-shelf parts like FPGAs. And I mean, as probably why FPV Blue was saying, you can't get an FPGA to do this job for the cost that DJI is selling the system for. So it's going to be very difficult for other people to muscle in, and you won't see knockoffs of the DJI system anytime soon.
No, and I think it's fairly safe to say they've done a good job on this. I was not say skeptical, but interested on how the FPV community would accept this. I managed to get my hands on a set about 2 days before launch, and I had a good play, and I knew technically it did the basics brilliantly. Okay, it needs more OSD. Hands down, it needs more OSD. It's been requested. It's been shouted at for fixed wing pilots. It's a fixed wing pilot's dream almost, this system, and it needs more OSD. But when you look at the latency, and you look at it, you think, yeah, they've got the right mix here out the door. They really have. And I didn't know how the community would react. I didn't know how, but everyone seems interested. It seems to have really, really caught a lot of people's eyes, which is good. I think it's really good that, I've just ordered a couple of bits to finish a new FPV racer. I had one on the bench I hadn't finished for 1.5 years because I was doing various other projects. It's kicked me back into it because it makes me think, you know what, okay, I want to get back involved again. And I from what I can see, it's doing it to a lot of people as well.
Evening, Mac Vision. Well, I've seen groups of people. Buying them and flying them already. So 4 or 5 chums with $1,000 each. That's not to be sniffed at if you're all rushing out and buying it, is it? No. That sort of speaks volumes.
What I find interesting is that the market they were pitching it to, quite clearly through their marketing and where they sent the initial test units out to, is not the market that's buying it. I mean, the hardcore racers, they've all said, it's not for us. It's not a product for us. Freestylers, it's not a product for us. But the people like Ian and myself, who are, well, okay, I can only speak for myself, who are decidedly mediocre.
Yeah. 100% correct. Someone said to me the other we need a
mediocre. Yes.
People keep saying to me, can I show footage? No one wants to see me flying FPV. Let me be clear. Technically, I'll take you through the whole thing. No one needs to see me trying to put it through a hole in the trees, because you'll see me go through the trees, up the branch, down, and then take me back to the garage when I rebuild it and do it again.
I would never do that. That would never happen when I was flying.
And I was surprised how rusty I was, actually. I haven't flown rate mode probably for 7-8 months. I haven't needed to. I haven't flown race quads for a long time. And I'll be honest, I've ended up buying the Drone Racing League simulator just to get myself a little bit of practice at home again, just before I take 500 quid with a new aircraft, which I've just built out with me. Do you know what I mean? So I did a lot of testing with it on a larger airframe rather than the smaller stuff. I have a test bed. To be honest, I have a test bed which is an F450 with a DJI NASA, which is designed. I can put it anywhere, send it anywhere, and know it will come back if something goes wrong. And when you're testing hardware that you can't afford to lose, it's a good way for me to be able to test things like range and things like that. And that's what I did most of my initial basic testing on, because you always need a solid platform for it before you can push the limits with it, really.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see so many fixed wing flyers leaping at them, and no doubt DJI will release a software update very shortly, which will include an OSD. I'm sure there's one lying around.
there's hope and there's more. The basics are there. It just needs to take the data. And the original system was the same. I have to say, the original Oculus Sync system basically just had voltage. By the time it was finished, it didn't have everything everyone wanted, but it had all the basics covered, and that was ideal.
What would have been good is if they had a composite analog input, so you could take your Betaflight OSD and overlay it on the HD image for the goggles. That would have been a very simple way to achieve that, because it would have integrated nicely into all those existing setups. And maybe someone will make one. They don't have an HDMI input on that thing. They've only got the camera input. So maybe there'll be new versions that come out in response to customer demands.
It's funny. That's a brick wall we've hit with HearLink as well. You know, when I've been testing the HearLink system, finding cameras with HDMI is virtually impossible. Literally, you're talking about a GoPro. That's about it. There's very few small FPV cameras, and it's going to be interesting to see what all the flight controllers are, because I know of 5 frame companies who are making dedicated frames for this now, who are getting on board. There are all the flight controller manufacturers look like they're going to want to put one out with a compatible wiring harness. That means you can just literally go harness to harness, no wiring, job done, ready to go. So they're all seeing that there's a market here. And as Bruce says, possibly not, not the hard races, but there's a lot of gear that could be sold to people who've seen people flying this and want a. At the end of it's funny. I think we talked about this a while back.
Is there though, really? Is there? I mean, it's the builders you're talking about here now.
If they can do what they did with the NASA and the 450 to the drone racing FPV industry, they will do very well. If you think. Ardra Pilot is amazing at what it does, but it's probably too complex for the average user out of the box. What made the NASA and the 450 fantastic is you could buy a set of DJI motors, DJI flight controller and frame, and it would just work. Very simply, you basically didn't have to touch the rates. It just did it. It wasn't the best in the world, but it flew, it hovered, it did everything you want to do. If we can get an FPV quad that can be built like that, and fly well without, there's thousands of off-the-shelf ones people can buy that do that, but people also like to build stuff as well, so interesting times.
I think also what you can remember is that this will create a slightly new market for systems integrators, because people want one of these quads. They don't want to build them themselves. So there'll be people out there who will be building quads based around the air unit and able then to sell that into the marketplace, because there was nothing previously that would do that. No one wanted. You could buy a racing quad or Banggood or something or other, but it was still setting it up, and people can provide turnkey solutions now with HD video, and that's it's going to creep into the people that have got a Mavic and fly in sport mode but think it's still too slow and boring. They'll be the people who want to buy a system like this.
100%, yeah. Because the Mavic can shift, it's surprising. You push it over, it will shift, and you push it through, and it's certainly not race drone fast, but it'll still do 50 mile an hour. So it's interesting. The whole thing is just interesting.
So DJI going to save the hobby then?
No, I just think they've probably carved another corner of it off. I think again, which they seem to be good at doing.
They're doing that now, because it was this new one coming up, 350 grams, this little quad they're building. I mean, they still have a 350 gram barrier, but they've got new ones coming out.
Conspiracy theorist. That's what you are. You bloody tin hat. Get your foil hat. It's come out today, hasn't it? Where's it come out?
We've had an Oz
today, but it's the camera, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's been some leaked images from Japan's FCC. I believe they came from the Japan Radio Communication Authority, and there's some FCC leaked images. Everyone then has said, "Oh, something's coming today." They are so early that they're normally the kind of things that go in a month, 2-3 months in advance if you base it on previous leaks. But people also forget DJI do this all the time, and that product never lands. So there's never a guarantee with them. There never is a guarantee. It's going to be interesting to see whatever it is, if it is.
And it's important to know that they do have 2 paid web pages out in the world that perhaps send out some of these leaks and help keep them in the news. Yeah. So fair play, but I mean they're genius at it. I think there will be some leaks. I think we're just a little bit too early for. There's going to be a Christmas one. We're in August, aren't we? Yeah, we're a month too early. We're a month too early. There'll be something in. If there is something, the actual? Well, I don't know. When do you reckon, Bruce? When would you time it?
Oh, I no idea. I mean, I'm not really up to speed on DJI. I mean, it is an area of the market that I haven't really followed very closely until now because they've never had anything that really appealed to me or fitted my wallet.
And then Andrew Dibbins asking, what about plane pilots who want to use a tripod-mounted screen as opposed to goggles?
Yeah, we'll have to see what comes. This is day one product. If it goes well, which it appears to be going, they're going to expand. They'd be nuts not to. So where they're going to end up, I don't know. Something that was mentioned earlier, I was going to say about these antennas. Bruce mentioned it about the power outputs on CE versus FCC. So it's 700 milliwatt on FCC, 25 milliwatt on CE. Obviously, that's not within DJI's control. But I know someone mentioned to me today they've done some tests with the MX Air antennas on these goggles. They've put 4 of them on it, and in CE mode, in 25 milliwatts, they're getting further range than they were getting in FCC with 700 with the stock antennas. So there's a lot of opportunity here for mods experimenting and seeing where people can go, because obviously the goggle antennas are removable, they're replaceable. So these aren't cheap. The Max Airs, what are they? They're $35 each. So if you've got to put 4 of them on, that's going to cost you.
Well, Bruce will answer this better than me, but then know this stuff as well, But the SWR must be massively off then for if you go up to 700 milliwatts there. What would you think would cause that, Bruce?
No, it's probably not going to change the SWR. But I wondered because they've got circularly polarized antennas on the air unit, and they've got linear dipoles on the goggles. And I wondered if they were using them as a phased array to get a circular polarization, in which case, if you replace them with a patch or something like that, you could be screwing up the ability to act as a circularly polarized antenna array. So I'm not sure exactly. I'll have a look when I sort of look closely at mine and see what they're doing. But simply throwing a patch or a helical or some other gain antenna on the goggles is probably not a really good idea, because if the SWR is out, you could damage your goggles because you're pushing 700 milliwatts out and 500 milliwatts bounces back. It's going to overheat things. And it might work for in the short time, but you may find that it avoids your warranty and you end up with a little bit of magic smoke escaping.
That's always the risk. That's the thing in it. And we're seeing a lot of experimentation right now because, the FPV groups are they're already, people are looking, can they take it out of the case? Don't take it out of the case. If anyone's thinking, do not run it out of the case. It gets very, very hot. I've clocked it at 60 degrees on the bench.
And if you look inside, it's got lots of thermal paste between the actual active components and the case to transfer as much of that heat out as it can.
People are just trying to reduce the stack size. Look at whether run it, because technically it's 2 boards folded to roll back over the top of each other with a ribbon between the 2. So you could technically fold it out as a longer, wider unit. But again, it needs the thermal characteristics of this. It needs that heat sink. That's not to say you couldn't design your own, but you're entering dodgy territory at that point.
That's very interesting. I am surprised it's running at quite at that heat, and that's obviously at the 700 milliwatt mode, I guess.
Yeah, and what it does on the bench is it gets to a certain temperature and then it kicks down to 25 milliwatt. There's a feature which you can turn on, which is power mode, and it'll turn it down for you. And that happens in flight as well. And for most people, it shouldn't be an issue in flight, but fixed wing users need to be aware of this, because if you're going to put it in an airframe, it needs cooling. It needs a fair amount of cooling. Otherwise, it could melt through the bottom of your aircraft.
That's pretty cool. You're out there at your 4-mile limit and suddenly, 25 milliwatts, what happened?
Yeah, and that's the concern. And you can turn that feature off. You can do it, but the risk of turning that off is if it overheats and that is off, it will turn off, because it's a safety device.
That's the thing they refer to as melt mode, is it?
I did have a vision of someone coming back in with an aircraft and the unit hanging at the bottom of it was melted a hole through the foam.
But it's not just the RF that's producing that heat. If you look at both modules, both boards are heat sunk to connected to the case, because, as I say, the amount of actual processing power required to encode into digital format at the low latencies we're talking about is quite significant. So just like the processor in your desktop computer, you've got to get rid of the heat from that somehow.
it's no different to a digital camera. If you look at, I use a GH5 for doing all my recording. Most of what I'm doing is 100 megabits a second. You can see on the side of the DJI, it's doing it at 25, 50. You can see the data rates are there. So, there's a reason why, the Sony's, the a6500 turns off after 10 minutes. Doing all of this processing is extremely difficult, no matter what it is. Okay, the sensor's much, much smaller on this, but then again, it's doing it at 120 frames a second. So whereas we're only driving a quarter-inch sensor, we're doing it at 120 frames a second. So there's a huge amount of work going on in there. There really is.
That's one of the things I want to test too, is the actual current draw of this unit. And because if you're flying in a small quad with a 1300 milliamp battery, if the thing's drawing, 1,000 milliamps or something to drive the thing, it's going to have an effect on your flight times. No one's actually sort of quantified that yet.
That's an interesting one. No, it's not. It's something I've thought of either. No, I'm looking forward to what you're going to do, Bruce. Pull it apart.
We're very much at the gee whiz time, aren't we? At the moment, people are so, oh, look at this, oh wow, and this too shall pass. But it's definitely been the news of the week. There hasn't actually been a great deal of other news in this week, and I didn't prepare anything because I didn't think the stream was going to last this long.
He didn't bother. A question I have seen people ask is when Europe models are coming, it'll be, I believe, around September, end of August, September. They were a little bit behind the American, the FCC side. I think it's just paperwork. They shouldn't be long.
I was wondering how many countries have been released in. Like, I'd like to get in. Has it got Bruce chain? Boo Boo's asking. Yeah, has it got blockchain? I wonder. Doesn't sound like it's got enough time to be doing some processing on the side there. And other systems are available. This isn't the first HD FPV system out there by a long shot.
How many we got now? What we got? 5. Okay, we got FPV Blue.
Yeah. There's the Kinex system. There's several out of China. One of the ones I've got there, I forget the name of it, but it's a Chinese one. It reckons it's got a 4 kilometer range, and it's there are several. There's the open source, the amateur one that people are doing using Wi-Fi, which is, if you don't need low latency, that seems to be working pretty well. So there are a number of HD options, but people just haven't picked up on them because they all, until DJI came along, had the same basic limitations.
Yeah, and it's that integrated thing again, isn't it? To be fair, and it's the one thing, as I said, they've always do well is give you a package which you can just generally, fairly simply plug in and work. I'm really interested to see what Fast Shark do, because at the end of the day, they are a monster in the industry, and they should never be underestimated as well. And they're not going to put something out that doesn't meet their standards either. Let's be honest. They're not going to produce a product which everyone's going to go, well, that's a bit daft. So it's interesting. It's interesting. If you looked at their picture as well, there was no cooling on that. Did you notice that, Bruce? There was no heatsink, no nothing.
Yes, but you cannot beat the laws of physics, matey.
No.
And until we actually see it, until it's in people's hands who are actually testing it, it remains vaporware.
And that's I'm really wondering how much it was a product ready to go, or crap, let's bolt something to a frame and put a picture out.
That's all that slowed down a little bit in our world, it seems. I'm not quite sure why all that sort of extended bullshit is disappearing, but it seems to be, which is a good thing. Perhaps this is growing up. One of the things, did you see the SkySense, a new high power outdoor charging pad that you can put a big quad on, and it'll charge the thing up? Let me read. Hey, let's see. Can we screen share?
Let's have a look.
Let's see. Can we screen share? What does this do?
I've got to say, I am impressed with this so far. I really am impressed with this.
Yeah. Oh, you can probably screen share. There's a button that says screen share. Oh, well, good luck, everybody. Here we go. Let's see what happens. I want that one. I want application window. Look, you don't want this one. Look, anyway, that's another thing. Oh, how do I get out of this now?
What you're seeing here, children, is called the learning curve.
I can't get back. Back here now. All right, how do I get out of that? That's a very good simulator. And in fact, that glider. Actually, no. Well, let's do this. let's do this. I want to talk to you about this, Brucey. This, you see, it's got the tiny elevators, the Genesis 3.
Yeah.
So it has got another. So it's not tailless entirely, and it seems quite an interesting way of doing business. And I must admit, I have wondered. Let's stop screen sharing. Do you know of any tailless or any wings with a little tail?
There is a jet. There's a jet that I've seen like that, which has a very small, very highly mounted empennage. Of course, there's all sorts of problems with short tail moments. And are you building a flying wing with a parasitic tail, or are you building a very short coupled conventional aircraft with a bit of reflex in the wing to help the tail? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I just think it give me a little more authority and pitch for a fine or coming down if you're at high alpha. That's why I was interested in it. And the sim's called Condor Sim, and it's great. And the trouble is I'm burning down millions of hours. I'm in the top 10 in the UK on it now.
He doesn't even live here.
No,
gamers, Gamers, they're everywhere.
Yeah, well, I understand that's how you make money on YouTube. But no, but if you're doing an approach that requires a high angle of attack, then you know a normal wing sort of runs out of go really. So I was just sort of experimenting with that, and so I wondered if there were any out there. Yay, forward swept wing, forward swept and that tail. So yeah, it's I've got to get out more, haven't I?
It is funny that, you know, I said earlier, you know, I spent a lot of time on the simulator this week, more than I probably have in the last 3 years. It's interesting in it that you gravitate, something happens and it pushes you one way or something, and you look at something else, you know, and it is amazing. You know, I've hooked my Taranis up to my Mac. I didn't even know I could do that. I'll be honest, didn't even know I could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just what I've been doing, and then I've been running simulations in our Real Flight 8 using software in the loop. But I have my doubts as to the realism, because normally I work with X-Plane, and X-Plane you're tuning full size pretend aeroplanes, and that's quite hard to. There's some of them are quite hard to tune, but you get there in the end. But with Real Flight, it's just boom. All the RC stuff seems to work. I think, that doesn't seem right. But it could just. It could.
It's not realistic, is it? It just works. That's not realistic.
So it's the scale of things. So we'll find out. But what Real Flight allows you to do. Again, I need to get out more. Is to articulate motors and things like that. You can have up to 12 servos in a lot easier way. So once you've made the models in Fusion 360, and you articulate the bits, then you have it how it would be. So that's why I'm playing with high alpha.
Can I ask Bruce a question? I got a question for Bruce. Bruce, and this is a radio question, as I mentioned it. What radio would you buy right now if I'm looking to replace my Taranis because I dropped it? I dropped it 3 times, and the third time I really did some damage. And it's at the stage where I've either got to rehouse it, might rehouse it, but I'm thinking about buying. Is it what should I look at the moment, Bruce? Any idea?
Well, I'm still looking at the new Jumper. That's quite an interesting radio, multi-protocol, and it's got the OpenTX software. So functionally, it's the equivalent of the Taranis, and it's at a better price point. But I still want to do a bit more testing before I give it the final tick of approval. The QX7 and the QX7S are quite nice. If you don't need sliders, I don't know whether you use sliders or not.
No, I don't really use them. No.
Okay, well then they're pretty good. I've had a lot of luck with my QX7S, and the Hall effect gimbals are quite nice because they're standard in the 7S, not in the 7. So yeah, I'm a little bit off FrSky at the moment, unfortunately, because I've had such a bad run with some of their gear. I've got so many faulty FrSky receivers laying on my bench. It is unbelievable. New out of the box. I've got an XS4R, X4R, whatever. Yeah. Got 2 of those, and both of them have got no more than 200 meters of range, and telemetry drops out at about 30 meters. And
it's crazy.
My goodness. So I thought I got an old one and put that in the same frame, exactly the same setup. Perfect. 1.5K, no problem. So there's something going on there. I've got an L9R, which has got less range, or it's got 200 250 meters of range because I was going to do a shootout between the L9R and the the R9 and several other receivers. And the L9R, which is supposed to be good for 5-6K easily, 250 meters. So there's something very strange going on with FrSky's quality control, at least or reviewers, Curse, I don't know. So I'm a little concerned. I've actually just started buying up a whole lot of the FrSky compatible receivers, and I'm going to see whether what FrSky said was true, whether they're worse and more likely to crash your planes, because at the moment, FrSky's receivers are the biggest the genuine one.
I've had my 9XD for ages, and the annoying thing with it doesn't stand up very well. That's why it keeps falling over. See, I put it down and move something, and the damn thing rolls off the table. If you lay it down, it's fine, but stand it up on those bottom feet, it's gone. And one of the biggest frustrations for me for that radio is trying to do any testing on the bench with it, because it's constantly disconnected. Do you get that over there? I don't know if that's CE only. If you're within it.
Telemetry loss or something.
Yeah, continuously. I've got to go and stand the other side of the room, and it's fine, and it does your head in when you're trying to set.
That's basically because when you get the transmitter too close to the receiver, you get swapping, and so the telemetry signal is lost. And it's even worse with the L9R because it actually swamps the receiver in the model, so you actually the sticks stop working. I've got a flying with an L9R in it, and when I sort of swing my arm back to launch it, it goes into failsafe, which is kind of inconvenient. At the moment, you need control. But that used to happen with the long wire stuff too. You'd swamp a receiver and you lose. But it only seems to affect the telemetry on the gear I'm using anyway, the normal FrSky gear. And that's, when you constantly, the woman's nagging at your telemetry, telemetry recovered. It's just a fact of life.
It's funny. It's weird because, I remember when I moved over from Spectrum, I never had those problems. Do you know what I mean? On the bench of Spectrum, it just, I could put an antenna to antenna and it would be fine. Okay, I understand, we're swamping the front end. It's one of those annoyances, isn't it? When you're on the bench trying to set up a new aircraft share, radio share. And
the solution, just put it in range test mode.
Just put it in range test mode, yeah. I'm just lazy.
Aren't we all? Except Gary.
I just forget, you're halfway through setting something up and it's just come on, I just want to finish this. But no, it was just interesting because I'm looking. I could rehouse it, but it's broke the buttons. The buttons broke off inside and fell down, and I glued them back, and then they broke again, and it tumbled over the top, and I've bent 2 switches now as well. It still works though. It's
you can get that little thing that mounts on the top handle, and it creates a nice tripod when you lean it back.
Yeah,
those little brackets. I mean, a lot of people seem to use those for that very reason, that they don't stand up very well on their own.
No.
And but so Wakefield, I should have a video out in the next couple of weeks on the jumper because I've added the bits that were faulty for that pre-production model, and I'm going to give it a big test. And I want to compare actually the range using the jumper transmitter and using a 9 typical Taranis and the QX7, because I get the impression that the newer radios aren't giving quite as much range as the old ones were. And I don't know what's causing that, whether it's because we've moved to the X-type receivers, which are always a little bit less range than the D-type, or whether they've done something and changed the effective radiated power or something. I'm not too sure, but I noticed my range is less now than it was, when I was using just the 9X with the D-series receivers.
Do you guys have the new feature we had in Europe? I'm trying to remember what it's called now, which is LBT, Listen Before Talk. Do you have that with you now?
No, we don't have that required.
Okay, because obviously that made a big difference for us, LBT. And okay, you can flash it off, but it did definitely have an effect for sure. Yeah,
it's crazy. You're running spread spectrum. You don't need LBT because effectively you can stomp on other people and it doesn't matter.
It's never there long enough to worry about. That's
exactly.
That's the whole idea of it. Yeah.
The people who write drone regulations must have moved into the radio spectrum business.
The responsible outlook as ever.
Yeah. Sort of anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, more power. I saw people talking about 5-watt FPV gear this week as well, and I just every time I 5-watt into what antenna? Hang on.
Oh,
I need to wear the string before I fly. Come on.
Can I get Val? When we start using the term, I've got a burner attached to the transmitter, that's when I'm happy.
With my 10-watt booster and my 20 dB Yagi, man, I get such good range, but the trouble is when I fly too close, the model catches on fire.
Yes, it's extended visual line of sight because it's the smoke. I can follow the smoke as it goes.
I was actually going to see if I could modify my microwave oven to be digitally modulated and just leave the door up and keep it in the direction of the model. That'd work What, 100 watts? You could go for miles.
It's good.
And heat your pie as well. I mean, multitasking. That's all the things in the modern world.
Can you get an MMCX connector on RG8? That's the question with a kilowatt. That's the in my radio days, I always had a kilowatt sitting in a burner, but that was valves back then as well. So yeah, can you get a valve on a burner? That's what
Were you
need
running
a
a
valve.
kilowatt? Were you running a
might have.
kilowatt on 27 megs per chance?
Maybe, yeah, maybe through
Talking
lower
to all the
SSD.
Italians. Yeah.
CQDX 163 Delta Tango. I've been there.
Never
Yeah.
underestimate the power of 4807s with the plate wound right up.
I want to see a race quad with a valve on the top for FPV output. I want to see it glowing in the dark. That's the next challenge. Someone to have a valve-powered video transmitter on a race quad.
It would not last long in my hand.
a nice teak race quad, with that sort of very dark colour, and just put it on top of the with the radiogram version of the transmitter, the lovely sunrise or whatever it was on it.
Well, they put LEDs.
Induction motors.
Yeah, well, they put LEDs in them. You won't need an LED. You could horizontally mount a tube down the middle of the quad and use that. It heats the IMU as well. So there's another win. There's a lot of benefits here to this.
Yeah.
I'm talking nonsense now.
and the video quality, of course, would be better. And the Hummer switching on, and the 20 turning it on and waiting 20 minutes before it all.
And it would have a lovely tone. And when you crash and it was destroyed, it would keep running for 30 seconds afterwards, just on the batteries, the inertia alone.
Just watch the HT lead.
Go down to a dot.
Try getting a B battery these days. Yeah, not easy.
Oh, yes.
That went a bit sideways, didn't it?
We're talking old people here reminiscing about the days when electrons were real.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting radio stuff kicking about. I probably do need to get some new radios. My Taranis is there, but I haven't managed to crash enough to drop them enough recently. And the D4R is D4R, isn't that? That is my go-to receiver actually. Yeah. So I'm a bit worried you're having issues with those. That's what I just order when I need a new one.
D4 is fine. The D4R2, that's the D series. It's the X4, XS.
The X series that causing trouble.
Yeah, that's the one that I had problems with. So yeah, I don't know. I like the D4R2, but it only does PPM output or PW output. Doesn't do S-bus, which is an issue if you're one of these high performance quad racers like me. Latency, every microsecond counts.
Every microsecond counts.
I notice as my quad gets further, I can feel the latency increasing because the radio waves have to travel further, and they only travel at 1 foot per nanosecond.
Everyone needs to watch Bruce's video this week. You need to watch that video this week. We need to make that viral.
The epic vlogger one.
The epic vlogger. Did you see? By the way, Bruce, did you see the picture of your head they put on a body on DLR on the Drone Racing League Facebook group this week? Let me find this.
And you can see if you can share as well, because I'm
going to share it on Twitter.
On Twitter, I
see if I can find it
this week as well. Have you got, just for interest, and this is just housekeeping now, dear viewer, have you guys got the screen share option along the bottom as well?
Yes,
you have. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can find this, because it's epic. It's epic.
Did anyone watch that Drone Racing League thing?
I tried, but it's banned in the UK because Sky have given them a load of money and mean I've got to pay Sky to watch it. I wasn't happy.
What?
Yes. In the UK, you can't watch it on Twitter. It's stopped because Sky have given them £1 million. I've read, and it's available on Sky Sport, but not for me to watch for free.
Gosh.
Did you see they're selling the DRL quads now, but it's a crowdfunding thing. You go and I'm thinking, well, surely they've got enough money to actually make a production run. They don't have to crowdfund the damn things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it come up, but I mean, as somebody said on LinkedIn, how excited the PVR set. I said, well, I've just done some painting and I have actually got to watch it dry because I can't. I'm afraid, as I fly FPV very badly. My son flies much better than me, but it's still far more fun than watching other people going round and round.
Well, they've tried to jazz it up. I mean, they've tried to add the individual sort of characters that you can associate with, like the Jensen Buttons of F1. They've got these characters I've racked up. But I must admit that I just, I'd rather watch some edited highlights. Perhaps I wouldn't watch anything live. And even then, it's kind of I can watch the same thing if I go down the park and look through my goggles.
And interestingly, I should have had I didn't need to speak about this, but DJI had their Robo Masters competition, which was ground, air, anything, and MacVision 7-inch quads, and they handle like a pig. I could put that up, can't I? I don't need to do that anymore. There, look like that.
Okay.
What was I going to say? But I think I saw on Twitch, was it on Twitch that they were streaming that? There was some ridiculous numbers. I'm probably going to have to look for those numbers.
1 point something million, didn't they say? There was, I was reading it on your site, Gary.
I knew I'd written about it or had put the press release up at some stage this week. I tell you, I'm on top of all of this.
It's a bonus we're on here, so let's...
Yeah, it is a bonus, but it was huge numbers, wasn't it? For Robo Masters, and I thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting for.
I found this picture. Shall I share it? No, it isn't
actually. Please,
Let's see. Right, share screen. Don't show this again. Okay, share. All right, this is going to share part of my screen. I don't know, is that working?
Maybe I'm not seeing it at the moment. Well, hang on, let's see.
There it is. There we go. Right, on the Roto Riot community, if you can see that.
Very good. Oh, look, we're all along the side still. We're all on the side and your screen's there.
That's good. I saw that. I laughed so much when I saw that. I actually thought it was Bruce at first. A cracking image.
Yeah. Well, they haven't. Well, I wonder how we might get hold of the broadcast figures. Oh, I know what did happen today. I had an answer to my Freedom of Information request from the police about Gatwick. Again, preparedness and all that sort of thing.
Where is Dodgy? Where is our favourite Ian on that? He's hiding at the moment, isn't he?
He's doing something to do with video making.
Yeah, he's busy doing stuff about gardens or something. More gnomes.
Funny enough, I was looking at concrete mixers today, but that's another story altogether. I'll never match his garden, though. That's for sure. Freedom of Information. It was basically it was about £800,000 was the number that they spent so far on the investigation. Here we are. Here's the response. I will put it in the comments very shortly.
Okay.
Crested reply number. Right, here it is. Right, I'm going to put this in the comments for everybody else. So here it comes into the comments, and it worked, and I thought it was a pretty polite reply. Dear Gary, I write with reference to your request regarding the following. Apologise for the delay. And my question was, what has been the cost to date of Sussex Police of investigating the December 2018 drone incident? And he can confirm the total cost to date is £886,000, £886,210. How many suspects were identified in those? How many have been interviewed? 2 people were arrested, interviewed, but eliminated from inquiries. No further arrests have been made. So there we are. And 8 to the 8, they responded to that.
So £1 million.
You wonder why your taxes are so high.
Yeah, I mean that is, but they answered. So the other Ian was right. Make the Freedom of Information request. Don't make their lives easy. But thank you, Roger Brace, Freedom of Information Officer.
What you,
88610.
I've just found what you wrote on the RoboMaster thing. 1.95 million people.
I wonder if 1.95 million paid Sky Sports that a little tack of money.
I reckon maybe it wasn't that many people. Maybe there were bots watching.
It was maybe
it's possible.
It's a robot competition, so you know, I mean, they
should still be mates tuned in. Yeah.
Cosmos,
Exactly.
all little Cosmos. Like I had a Cosmo. They're all sitting there nodding up and down, going. It's a lot of people, wasn't it? It's a lot of people. I was gutted on the Drone Racing League. Yeah, I've never seen a full race, and I fancied having a look, and I couldn't believe it that it said not available in your region.
Gary, you need to interject. This live stream was brought to you by NordVPN. If you go to NordVPN/Gary does everything, you'll get a 7% discount.
Hang on a minute. I need to put up some sort of video game thing. I need to put up something of now Masters of Blowing Up Ships Craft.com on your phone. Trust me, you'll love it. It's the best. And now I need to make a great big ship out of foam board and sink it.
You know, it's funny, that NordVPN thing I'm seeing all the time now. Every time I watch a bloody video, you're seeing it, and you're just like, I can understand why people do it, and it would. If I'm honest, would I ever want every video to be sponsored by someone? No, I don't think I'd want to go down that road. Don't get me wrong. I've got some videos. I got a couple of dealers who sent me some stuff to look at. Dealers stuff. And you know, I'm doing some videos at the moment on the Cube Pilot stuff. I put one out the other day, and you know, the guys at 3DXR have helped me with that massively because they've got all the gear, you know. But would I want every video to always be by some sponsored with something that I don't? I suppose you've got to do what you've got to do at the end of the day, haven't you? That's the problem.
Well, I actually prefer sponsored things because if you watch Linus Tech Tips and that, you can see, okay, I'll just jump ahead to here. Bing, gone. Yeah. But you have to wait for those non-skippable ads. You've got 5 seconds or something to count down, and then you get another one, and then you get another one. So sponsorship's great. You can just jump right past it and carry on. And to be honest, Nord offer much better money than YouTube because they've offered me a deal, and I haven't taken it up on it. But it would be 6 times what I'd get from YouTube for the same video.
Mitchell Roberts has got that comment. Can you see these
stories free? Yeah, they're great. It's come up there, yeah. And I suppose the good thing is, as you were talking about earlier, Bruce, if it's not related to the product directly, then you're getting a review of something which isn't skewed because Nord isn't related to the product itself. So actually, it's actually could be beneficial in that way. You know, it's a weird old way we're heading, and I don't, you know, I think you're going from the money on YouTube via external Patreon. You know, for me, Patreon just didn't work. None of my subscribers like me, so that's the conclusion I come to. We discussed that one before. None of my subscribers actually watch my channel. It's quite funny.
You need to use the other one, Patreon.
Patreon. That's unfortunately. If that's not out there, we need to set that up quick, very quick, because that'll make some money that way, wouldn't it?
But you know, it's weird that YouTube is becoming how commercial YouTube is coming now. I think it's very clear how commercial YouTube is coming. That's the big probably take from everything is it's suddenly become TV. Basically, it's feeling very much like it's TV now.
It's going back to remember the early days of radio when this broadcast is brought to you by Studsy Soap, you know, I mean, it's that thing. We're going back to the 1920s, and it's evolving, and YouTube's trying to wind that evolution up as quickly as possible with all the mid-roll ads and things like that. It's just, crazy.
Did you ever leave the 1920s, Bruce?
I was in my teens then, Gary. I do remember.
No, I won't go there. I was going to say something, but I won't. I'll get myself into trouble.
Boo Boo's mentioning the Boo Boo in Wales. I think we all know the Boo Boo that you're talking about.
Yes,
there, Boo Boo.
Yes, not far from me. Not far from me at all. The Watchkeeper, isn't it? I'm assuming that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So.
They're trying to kill school children. No, so that's a bit harsh. Yeah, they flew it into some trees on purpose, by the seams of it. And
Did you hear how it happened? It wasn't on purpose. Apparently, it was doing a go round, and the operator pressed the engine cut.
yes, so that's on purpose in my eyes.
Like, you can train these people. Has he
Ooh,
got his driving license?
Ooh, what happens if I do this? Oh, right, okay.
Well, that happened with the I can't remember the name. What's a good old-fashioned American one that we all know and love? The big one, the Predator.
Oh,
the Reaper,
Predator, yeah.
Predator. Well, that happened with one of those when they swapped seats in the training exercise. They swapped to the other seat, and the fuel cock was off on the other seat. So when they handed over control, the engine shut off, and they were like, "Whoa, hey, no, why?"
Like John Denver's long easy. It's very easy. Yeah, same thing.
Well, he couldn't reach it, could he? He couldn't. It was in a non-standard place, wasn't it?
I have to say, every time I've got involved, whenever my aircraft's tried to do something to save itself, I've probably made it worse. And that's another example there of, them. The technology is clearly there. The story, I believe, is it come in, it overshot the runway, it had too much speed. The flight controller decided that it was going to repower up, go back up and fly around, and they intervened at that point and did the emergency cut. Now, the news is saying if they hadn't have intervened, it would have done everything it should have done, and it would have landed safely. They've had so many accidents with this thing up there.
It's not like the Boeing 737 MAX 8 then.
No, I don't. How many have they crashed? I think 6.
I think 2 crashes.
No, it's quite a few in total now.
Yeah,
it's not gone very well. That Mitchell's saying, and he's quite right that the Predator Reaper crash, for stupidest reason they do. GCS is so outdated. Yeah, absolutely. And then Rybat is saying, any words regarding Detective Q Blacks?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any out there now. If you've got one which was purchased between January and March this year, make sure your firmware is up to date, connect it to Mission Planner and see what it says. If you connect it and it says it's fine, as long as you enable all 3 EKFs, all IMUs, it should be fine. If it says it's a failure, speak to your dealer, they'll swap it out. Everything manufactured after March should not have a problem. As of today, they're in beta testing of the orange, which will replace the black. I set mine up this week. I've been playing with it this week. I have had a few problems with it, nothing to do with Philips hardware. It's entirely around ArduPilot. 3.7 Master is frankly being a pain in the ass for me. For some reason, the daily builds are just going backwards, not forwards with it. They've added a lot of weird faults onto the daily builds. So if I go back to a daily build from mid-July, it works fine. But after that point, it's all going wrong, to do with the drivers, basically. But if you've bought a Cube Black after March, as long as it is manufactured after March, it should be fine. The key to this is make sure you enable all the IMUs. It's quite a complex subject. I don't know. Do you want me to explain it quickly, Gary, on that, or do you? Okay. The very basics are under PX4 you could only run 2 IMUs and EKFs at the same time. There wasn't enough resources to run more. When they moved to Chibios, it meant that it was a more leaner, faster operating system that allowed more resources within the flight controller, and that has allowed them now to say to you, actually run all 3 redundant IMUs, because the Cube Black has 2 isolated and 1 on the main board. So if you've updated to the latest versions of ArduPilot, even the current releases, you can now enable all 3 IMUs. So even if you have this problem, the redundancy is there, and they've completely rewritten the code around the redundancy as well. It wasn't as simple as the Cube. Yes, there was a hardware fault within the Cube, but the software should have been able to recover from that, and it didn't. So like many plane crashes, like many incidents, there wasn't one cause here. The hardware was the trigger, but the software also didn't behave in such a way that it should have, and that has all been rewritten now. And basically, if you follow the process, it should be 100% fine. I would fly one knowing it was made in that serial number without any concerns if it wasn't showing an issue.
Andrew Gibbons, Ian, why not do a video? That must be of your...
I have actually on this. There is one. So check it out. I did do one on this whole thing. specifically, because it is hard to explain. It is hard for everyone to get their heads round. I can't remember what I called it.
Yeah, that's because we are cutting edge YouTubers on top of exactly what we've done. Em Wilson and Mitchell Roberts in the comments are talking about the hiring of operators without a real flying experience with the big jobs, and there's also an issue with the difference between USAF and Army accident rates, because a lot of the USAF guys actually do want to land the things, as the Army guys just hit auto land and everything's tickety-boo. So yeah, there's big problems, but I can't help but think, conspiracy hat on, that the manufacturers are pleased that so many of the big machines go in, because if they were super reliable and the blokes didn't keep crashing them, how are they ever going to make any more? Or why would they ever make any more? Because think about it, unmanned and with reliable systems, they've got potential to be in the air for 100 years, haven't they? Or be used for 100 years, as long as they're maintained well. Because there's no man in the loop to screw it all up.
It's always the squidgy bit in the middle, isn't it, that causes the problems.
The meatware. And I believe I've heard Bruce talk about the squidgy bit in the middle before, but that was on one of his other channels.
Not on YouTube, on that other very popular video sharing service.
Yes, perhaps. Look, we've gone over the hour. The thing hasn't crashed, and it's worked with 3 of us, so that's quite good.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
After you, Ian.
I was going to say, I haven't really seen anything else this week. As I mentioned, I'm still doing the videos on the cubes and getting through the beta ones now. They are in beta. So I'm hoping to get some videos out to show people how to set them up, but it is still in beta. As I said, I spent about 4 days smashing my head against the wall with one of them, and it was nothing to do with Philip. It was Ardra Pilot itself, and I think sometimes people forget that you've got all of the hardware on one side and the software on the other, and whilst they talk, they're not the same company. And we have an open source community that make fantastic software and an open source community that make fantastic hardware, but they're not one, and sometimes you have to navigate the seas between the two a little bit, and it can be frustrating, even for those of us who are used to this stuff, who are used to putting this together. Sometimes hit brick walls with this and start going, hold on a minute, what's going on? So I figured out a path through it now, and that's what I'm going to hopefully share. I've also got the CUAV version 5 coming in a couple of weeks as well to have a look at. I'd be interested to see what that is like as well.
Look out, you've invoked one of the devs. They'll start arriving now.
They'll
start arriving.
Please raise issues in GitHub. Yeah, I will. I'll get on with it. I'll do it. Now I know what's going on. But yeah, I think part of the problem is people they buy a cube at times, and expect to have what you get with, say, a company that supplies everything. And at the end of the day, Philip makes some of the best hardware out there is. But there is a level of expectation on everyone to use the community to get the support and use the community to get help. And they offer a huge amount of support on their website as well on Cube Pilot. But sometimes, as I said, there's a bit of navigating the seas in between. And these are beta. That's why they're currently in beta as well, for this very reason. We all have pain, so you guys don't.
Yes. Thoughts of the video? The guy seeing an RC wing from plane at 2K feet? I didn't think it was anything special. I just thought it was, well, there's no look. No fuss.
Have you seen...
He said, not a big deal. How many other pilots would have filed a complaint?
Have you seen the video of the plane dropping a chicken out of the bottom on a parachute?
Is this a live chicken?
This is real. Yes.
Other channels.
KRP in Cincinnati. Remember that program when they threw turkeys out of a helicopter?
Honestly, I just seen a video on Facebook tonight of a plane taking off a plane, and then it flies off, and a door opens, and something in a parachute lands, and it hits the ground, and it runs off, and it's a chicken.
A chicken delivery service of some sort. Fast food and fresh and all that sort of thing.
We reckon Gary should get a life. Gee.
I've seen some nonsense this week. I really have.
Well, that's coming from the man who's away from home in a hotel, isn't it, Ian? That's
what happens, yes.
Don't forget the police making good use of police helicopters when they should be using drones for spying on people.
Oh yes, and that's not the first prosecution in the UK for that. Yeah, you're referring to the operator in the back who was using the camera to ensure that everybody's swimming pools were correctly filled in the back garden.
Oh,
Something like
very
that, wasn't it?
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's not the first police prosecution for that in the UK. For voyeurism.
I suppose
from that sort of thing.
one of the things I've just thought about is this. I don't know, are we going to see an increase on RC prices in the US because of the tariffs? I've not really looked at that. Are we expecting that to hit everything now?
They've delayed the introduction of tariffs on things like phones and tablets and that now, apparently. They've just pushed it back a bit. So I think they're trying to give the Chinese some breathing space, or, trying to get a response out of them. And I don't think that if it does come into effect, it won't last long, because the people will object. The public there'll be an outcry, and politicians are usually sensitive to public concerns like that.
It's funny because I saw a post, and I think it was from Get FPV. It allegedly sent this out to its suppliers. I don't know if anyone else saw it, which was basically cut your prices by 5% or 10%. Put your prices up by 10% for everyone, so everyone takes the same hit, or share the cut between them. And they were basically demanding what their suppliers are going to do. And I just found it interesting that the retailer demands what the supplier is going to do.
Of course, the Chinese are playing around with the value of their currency at the moment too,
Yes.
which may have an effect.
Yeah, it's not a lot any of us can do about it, really, is there? We just have to see what happens. And
I'll go to Hong Kong and demonstrate. That's what I'll do.
yeah, absolutely. We don't like price increases in the US. They'll find some backwards. Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
They will. So yeah, hopefully it's just an aberration, and we shall see.
Is anyone still using Hobby King to buy stuff? Just wondering.
Funny enough, they sent in their email today was a PC-6, and that is also one of the aircraft I've been simulating in high alpha, because it's that sort of thing. So I'm like, oh yeah. But other than that, no, I haven't bought anything from Hobby King for I want to say 2 years now.
It's interesting.
I'm getting the feeling that they're becoming increasingly irrelevant because of the shipping problems, and I noticed they're diversifying much more into non-flying RC models and things. I think they're feeling the pinch a bit, perhaps.
It's interesting. I've noticed that if I look in the UK, most of the dealers are stepping their game up, and the pricing is very similar overall now. Unless you're buying the total tat, bottom end, cheapest £14 flight controller or something like that, you won't get that from your main dealer. But when you are buying quality gear, when you're building a new FPV or you're building anything and you want to buy good gear, you're not going to go to Hobby King. That I wouldn't even dream of going to Hobby King for that stuff neither.
Well, it's always been the shipping's been an issue to South Africa here, and good luck buy. Put affiliate link below. Has a really good shipping service that takes about a week, and it comes by courier to my door. So I can't get that service out of Hobby King, and it doesn't cost me any more if the order's high enough. So if I do buy anything, then that's where I tend to go, just for that very reason. That just the shipping is.
When I go to Hobby King and I say, "Oh, I'll have that," sorry, we cannot ship to your country, or whatever. It's like, well, why do you bother putting it in the catalogue? I'm from New Zealand because you've got the IP number. Why do you bother even suggesting this to me? And I go to all the trouble getting the checkout. You order a large model. It says this this order is too large to be shipped. Consider breaking it into smaller orders. And I'm thinking, well, who's going to cut the thing in half and package it up in 2 boxes for me?
I used to use them a lot when I ordered a lot of Zippy lipos. I used to use the Zippies mostly, on the 450s and stuff like that years ago. But when you move away from the low end, that type of stuff that you can slap a 4S Zippy on a F450 frame and hover it around the garden, it's not going to go up in flames. Once you move away from that, they're not really the ideal place to go, are they? And the FPV market is really specialized a lot more now, and all of the independent country shops are setting up for that, and that's where people are putting their money, it seems.
Yeah, I think that I noticed it's started to coincide with the arrival of mini quads, because they've never really had good mini quad products. They've had some products, but they're never top of the line. They're never best value. The frames have always been crap. The motors have always been mediocre. So I think they basically lost a lot of momentum there, and people having to find other suppliers for those items have also found they ship things that that they want, and they'll ship it for $2 or nothing, and that's where they've come apart.
And if you look at the explosion of the race flight controller market, it's huge, and all they're trying to sell is their own, you got Bardwell's got his own Brain FPV, you've got the CS boards, there's so much out there, and people are keen on buying a board they know and like, and they're going, oh, I've had one of them, I like that, I want another one, and things like that. So yeah, you're not going to go and pick up a basic Ultrapilot Mega from them to put in a race quad or anything like that. So
yeah, and if it comes, I'll take the risk on the Good Luck by Banggood or whatever product. It's going to cost that little bit less, and maybe I'll buy 2 of them, and hopefully one of them will work. But I just can't. I can't do that. I mean, that's where I get all my all these radios come from. All the LoRa stuff I've got comes from Good Luck Buy. And
it's funny. I'm just looking on there now. I haven't even been on Hobby King's website for months and months.
They had a big change. They did, didn't they? Yes.
And they haven't fixed it. So people don't. There's easier places to shop. I think they've lost track of the fact that they're no longer the only player in the game. They've got to lift their game, but they're spending the money in the wrong places.
Yeah. I'm just looking on it now just to see, I'm trying to find a flight controller, and I can't even find a flight controller. Radio servos, more FPV. I'm looking at it's okay. Where is it gone? It's that's not good at all, is it? That's really not good. Vehicles.
But I mean, that's some Australian lads, isn't it? That went to Hong Kong and set that all up. So they'll have made their money and be retired now, won't they?
Yeah, probably. And I think new people probably aren't. Whoever owns it now, probably not hobbyists. They are treating it as a business, and we're not selling new website. That'll fix it. But they don't understand the needs of the market quite as well as the original owners.
Maybe, yeah. Mitchell Roberts, I'll put this comment up again. Says he wants commercial SUS prices to go up. Hobby can stay low. The industry needs to pay a premium for non-Chinese toy drones. Well, I hope you make them well enough.
You refer to the Matrice as a toy drone.
Yeah, I think that is. I see that as a little unfair on that aircraft. It's a bloody good aircraft, to be fair. It's not been without issues, but it's certainly not a toy. In the fit and feel. I do agree. I think all aircraft are too cheap. From a resale value, it's a nightmare for anyone who buys and sells. If you're anyone like me who tries to get one after the other to be able to talk about and stuff like that, I lose a fair amount of money changing an aircraft every year just to be able to try and keep up with what's going on, and it would be nice if we could keep the resale value up a bit. And it's better than it's ever been. Let's be honest. Product releases are slower than they've ever been as well. So
new EU rules come in and all your drones are useless.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's funny mentioning that. Louis here now, and right back. It's right. Not enough market for US manufacturers of mid to large frames. I think you're probably right.
I think everyone sits back and says, I want to pay more. I think it's very different people doing it. And take an example from that is the Blue Cube, for instance, is a classic example of that from Philip. It costs twice as much as the black because it's manufactured in the US. I think everyone sits there and says, yeah, I'll pay more. When it comes down to it, I don't think they will.
Well, at the end of the day, the aircraft and Mitchell was this. I think it does still have problems with the batteries. Yeah. It's the data, isn't it? It's not the aircraft; it's the data product that you arrive at. The client doesn't give two hoots what you pay for the aeroplane. That's kind of your Indaba, and it's you need a machine to. Hang on, what is Louis saying here? You need a machine that's
Mr. Robotics, it doesn't cost more in the US. Yeah, they got the nice new one as well, a little one. I'm gonna order one of them. I want to have a look at that. Louis had it. He showed it to us, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago?
And Wilson's friend crashed one just the other day, but then crashes happen with all flight controllers.
I'm still on Hobby King trying to find flight controllers. I can't find flight controllers.
Yeah, look for KK2.
Tune in next week when Ian finds a flight controller.
Honestly,
Ian uses the internet this week. Ian searches for inappropriate things.
Hobby King.
Search for Naze 5.
Nice. I can't.
Probably still got those in stock.
In-flight controllers accessories. So where's the bloody menu for it?
Now you know why people don't buy from Hobby King. They can't find
I
anything.
can't find it.
Yeah.
Aircraft. Honestly. Oh, I'm an
It
idiot.
was definitely a crazy
Yeah,
change.
no, I'm an idiot. It's me.
Oh well, there's that as well.
Who are we to disagree, Gary?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Can we
Actually,
have
that's
one of those voting things?
I tell you what's interesting. They got a lot of race controllers, and they're selling a lot of the branded stuff as well. Betaflight F7, Holybro, F4. You know, the common stuff people want.
Why would we develop when all of our work is stolen by corporations playing off legislators? Well, now that is
Not
one
just
way of
ordinary legislators, but 4S legislators. They'll be
Or
pretty
yeah, watch out when the 6S ones come along, then we'll be in trouble.
They're going to be quicker, more agile. They're just going to steal stuff faster than anyone's stealed anything before.
But high-end clients, do they really request high-quality SUAS to be used, or do they just request the end product to be high quality? What do they want?
We've said this before, haven't we? It's the aircraft isn't relevant in most parts. It's the data. It's all about the data capture. You know, the aircraft is a tool. Over time, they're going to get cheaper, smaller, easier. What's M600 today in 5 years' time is going to be a Phantom size getting the same thing. When LiDARs get smaller, when we have better ways of acquiring data and delivering that data to a back-end system without relying on, frankly, shoddy cellular data, when we have ways of 5G being able to upload gigabytes of data back to a remote station the other side of the planet in under an hour, then the guy on the ground with the aircraft becomes irrelevant. It purely becomes about quick data capture.
Speaking of the future, are we going to have nuclear-powered drones like that one that the Russians blew up?
Quite possibly. And then Mitchell says, depends if they want a low-end product flying over their property or not. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? We're talking about safety there. Is quality and safety, are they actually linked?
And then that means, is a Kia more dangerous on the road than a BMW? Because
I thought you said IKEA then.
Yeah, no, not IKEA.
I have no idea what you meant.
No, but is a Kia more dangerous than a BMW? Or, you know, the reality is, if you look at the car industry, safety has become a standard benchmark with the N, what do they call it? The NCAS or the N something tests? Yeah, NCAP tests. So the cost of the drone won't come into it. Eventually, the technology is mature enough now that failure happens. It doesn't matter if you fly a £5 million, £50 million drone, as the military have proved, or you fly a £10 flight controller. Failure happens. At the end of the day, the drone will become less, in my opinion. The drone will become less of the object of importance, and the simplicity of capturing the data will become the most important thing. And the guy on the ground will be earning pennies a day. It will become, he will turn up and hit a button. He won't be there planning the flight. It'll be pre-programmed at a back end. He'll put it on the ground, turn it on, it'll sync, it'll take the flight plan, bam, done.
We're already there, aren't we? There's a couple of services in America that are like that, aren't they? Bringing it in from an app.
Yep, and bam, there's your pizza on the back door. Fantastic.
Yeah. It's, you know, I think what's going to be left is that, you know, after everything's finished, it'll be race quads and the odd camera drone. I think that's with the big aircraft. That'll just, big companies will step in eventually. Once the big companies step in and go, we're taking over, all of that stuff will go away, and you'll be phoning up Google, and they'll already have the data sets you're after. They'd have done it 3 months ago.
Comment there that Gary's got on the screen about would you go with aviation like Boeing or Airbus or some Chinese airliner? Here's something to ponder. China have put a rover on the moon. Israel tried and crashed. Israel is a leader in the UAS industry.
Yeah.
So China isn't necessarily bad at everything they do.
The type of aircraft they make will become the manufacturer. The country of origin will fade away into dust. It'll be a tool to achieve a job, and, you know.
And where are all our iPhones made? China.
Yeah.
But there must be matrix. There must be comparisons with other industries. How I don't know, in the car industry, you might have started off with half a dozen tatty Fords or whatever, and then they turned into higher quality ones. There must be comparisons with other industries as they grow out.
I don't buy the whole security thing. I never have. At the end of the, I can fly any drone with my phone in flight mode. I can go home and erase my phone. My data's secure. It's if I ever wanted to fly with secure data, I'd have a fresh iPad, fly with it, erase it at the end of the flight. Data is in your hands at the end of the day. It always has been. It always will be. It's no different to your laptop. It's no different to. Do you worry about walking into Costa with your laptop and connecting it to the Wi-Fi network? How many companies, how many
If
people
you
for
do,
business?
You should look at NordVPN.
Did you see what he did there? He's a genius. Bruce, you need to sign that contract, my friend. You need to sign that contract.
Louis, if you came earlier, you would have discovered there was Gatwick today. There was Gatwick today, Louis. We never go. You'll never go without a Gatwick comment. I got a reply to my freedom of information request, which I thought was great, and it was £886,210 that the total cost to date of the Gatwick operation, so nearly £1 million. So there you are, Louis. There's your answer.
And I'll be looking at the CAUV Fusion 5 Plus in a couple of weeks, Louis, to keep you happy as well. I got one of them coming. So I know that's the one you had hanging in wires that day, in bits of them.
Absolutely. Look, we've been gone on far too long yet again. So before I have got to get that gavel or hammer. Thank you very much, dear viewers, for putting up with this. Gentlemen, do we have anything else before we go?
No.
I wonder what we have to do. Normally afterwards, we have a chat, which is often much, much better than what we've done. But it's things that we dare not actually speak on live. I wonder if that'll still happen when we finish. Anyway, dear viewers, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. He has one here, the version 5 Plus. Thank you very much for putting up with us and for coming back this week. It's very nice of you to join us again. And I think we might stick with this one. We'll stress test it next week with more guests and see. And we look forward to seeing you 2100 GMT next week. Have a safe week and weekend. If you're flying, have fun. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye. Uh-oh. This is taking